Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. I'm Erin Ute. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. Find out more about what social media company has cut ties with Russia, for now. Also, we'll tell you what city is preparing to deal with sea level changes due to climate change. In local news, find out what new tax is being argued in the City Council. All this and more coming up on NewsNight. Israel's parliament has renewed a temporary law dating back to 2003 that bars Israeli citizens from extending citizenships or even residency to parliamentarian spouses from the occupied West Bank and Gaza. Israel says the law, which was first enacted during a Palestinian uprising, is needed for security purposes. Critics view it as a racist measure aimed at maintaining the country's Jewish majority. The law is aimed at Palestinians and does not apply to Jewish settlers in the West Bank, as they already have Israeli citizenship. The Knesset failed to pass the law last summer because it did not have the support of the left-wing and Arab members of the governing coalition. The law passed late last Thursday with help from the opposition, but without the left-wing and the United Arab List, an Arab party that made history by joining the government coalition last year. The law mainly affects the Arab minority, which accounts for 20% of Israel's population of 9.5 million and has close family ties to Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. They have citizenship, including the right to vote, and have gained acceptance and influence overall, but still face widespread discrimination. Because of the law, Arab citizens have few, if any, avenues for bringing spouses from the West Bank and Gaza into Israel, but does not apply to the nearly 500,000 Jewish settlers who live in the West Bank. Also under this law, Jews who come to Israel from anywhere in the world are eligible for citizenship. More and more companies continue to pull services from Russia amidst the war, and social media is no exception. Deal has more information about what photo sharing application has decided to stop their service.
Russia has officially shut down Instagram use in the region, preventing almost 80 million users from accessing the app. The official shutdown began at midnight on Sunday, March 13th, giving users 2 days to move their photos and other information off of the app. The shutdown comes after Meta, the company that owns both Facebook and Instagram, agreed that Ukrainian Instagram users will be allowed to post messages such as "Death to Russian invaders." This angered Russian officials, causing them to open a criminal investigation into Meta. Prosecutors have asked a court to designate the company as a, quote, extremist organization. The state media regulator of Russia, Roskomnadzor, calls Meta's actions a breach of international law, claiming the harmful messages can affect the mental health of Russian citizens. In response, Meta claims the change of terms was to allow Ukrainian citizens to, quote, express their resistance, and discourages the Instagram ban. Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, expressed via Twitter that, quote, the decision will cut off 80 million in Russia from one another and the rest of the world. This is wrong.
Last Thursday, the Asian island country Indonesia experienced a disruptive volcanic eruption. Indonesia is home to more than 120 active volcanoes, but the Mount Merapi is the most active, as seen by its eruption last week. The sky was filled with hot ash clouds on Thursday morning, and a mixture of rock, lava, and gas traveled up to the 3.1 miles down the mountain. Many more small eruptions continued throughout the day, causing around 250 people to evacuate from the area. The people returned after the volcanic activity subsided, but they were advised by Indonesia's Geology and Volcanology Research Agency to stay outside from a 4.3-mile radius from the volcanic center. Many tourism attractions within this radius have also been shut down temporarily because of the eruption. Coming up after the break, find out more about your national news. What insect did the EPA decide to genetically modify? What animal took the lives of 2 men? Find out more after the break. We'll be right back.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to NewsNight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public School.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen raiding.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
is looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more,
All this and more
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
The rise in sea levels has been prevalent as concerns over climate change grow, and with the latest predictions in extreme weather events, cities are rushing to create long-term solutions to external events, especially around floods in coastal areas. Sea levels are expected to rise up to a foot by 2050, leading to a higher frequency of coastal flooding across the U.S., according to the latest National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration report. The report, published on February 15th, projects the sea level rise by decade for the next century based on tide gauge and satellite observation. Each region could rise between 10 to 12 inches in the next 28 years. By 2100, the risk doubles with an estimated increase of 2 feet of sea level. The report states both projections could lead to a, quote, profound increase in the frequency of coastal flooding, even in the absence of storms or heavy rainfall, end quote. As a way to prevent flooding, New York City, in partnership with the federal government, is reconstructing parts in communities from East 25th Street to Montgomery Street as part of the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. The $1.45 billion project, which began in last fall of last year and is set to be completed by 2025, will create a 2.4-mile, quote, flood projection system consisting of flood walls and floodgates, as well as elevate parts in the region up to 9 feet to keep the storm surge out of the neighborhood. Sewer infrastructure will also be remodeled and updated to handle more water in the upcoming years. The project estimates more than 110,000 people will be impacted, of which about a quarter live in low-income or public housing. The project has its own wave of controversies as well. To break ground, the city has to temporarily block 45 acres of public green space and cut down 1,000 mature trees, fueling some residents to organize protests and demand to save the East River Park. While this project aims at protecting residents from climate change impacts, the race against time continues to find long-term solutions for generations to come, before it's too late. Genetically modified organisms are animals, plants, or microbes whose DNA has been altered using genetic engineering techniques, according to National Geographic. The EPA has genetically modified a certain pest to stop the spread of disease. Nick Konopka has the details.
The EPA has approved the release of 2.4 million genetically modified mosquitoes in Florida and California to fight off infectious diseases. The main target of the GMOs are the mosquito species Aedes aegypti, which transmit deadly diseases including yellow fever and the Zika virus. While only making up 4% of the mosquito population, Aedes aegypti is responsible for nearly 100% of mosquito-borne illness in humans. Luckily, with the help of the British company Oxitec, these deadly bugs will drastically reduce in population. The Oxitec mosquitoes have modified DNA so that their female offspring die young, and since female mosquitoes are the only ones to bite, this should significantly lower the chance of transmission of illness. A successful pilot program of the mosquitoes was deployed in the Florida Keys in 2021, and its results led to the EPA to authorize their use in several high-risk counties in Florida and California. This tactic is much more effective than traditional pesticides that were sprayed to kill Aedes aegypti eggs in the past. Following EPA approval, Oxitec CEO Gray Fransden said, quote, "Given the growing health threat this mosquito poses across the U.S., we're working to make this technology available and accessible. The experiment is set to be complete by April of 2024.
In Tennessee, there was an unusual incident that led to 2 men dead. Reporter Addie Deal has more information about just what happened on Shirley Farms.
An aggressive camel escaped a farm and killed 2 men after attacking police officers in Obion, Tennessee. The farm, Shirley Farms, is home to goats, sheep, deer, and much more. The farm offered a pumpkin barn and animal petting areas until 2017, where they began offering camel rides. While the reasoning for the camel's aggression is unknown, the camel charged officers arriving on the scene, damaging a sheriff's vehicle. The 2 men, Bobby Metheny, 42, and Tommy Gunn, 67, were pronounced dead on the scene, and the officers were forced to put the camel down. The sheriff's office did not release the gender of the camel. However, male camels are known for being aggressive between November and March, which is their mating season. While the circumstances surrounding the attack are still unknown, a 2019 inspection report claims there were no employees or attendants around the camel area, and it is unknown if the farm had attended to that problem.
Coming up after the break, we'll have all your local news. Find out more about the delays within the Port Authority bus system, as well as a new tax that has been proposed within the Pittsburgh City Council. A proposal to impose a 1% tax on college tuition and medical bills in Pittsburgh is facing opposition and potential legal problems. Councilman Ricky Burgess introduced this measure this past Tuesday. Students seeking higher education in colleges, universities, and advanced technical schools would be assessed a 1% tax on their tuition before financial aid, grants, or scholarships are factored in. It would also apply to the patients at the city's medical facilities on the amount charged before insurance. The tax money, projected to be at least $50 million a year, would be put into the infrastructure needs, a problem that has increased attention from local officials since the Fern Hollow Bridge collapse this past January. City Controller Michael Lamb said, quote, "The bill itself is troublesome. The end result has to be a meaningful contribution from nonprofits, not from their students and patients." He also said that adding extra costs when the country is facing a, quote, "student loan crisis and when many are struggling to afford medical bills is not the answer." Lamb and other officials said the proposed tax on students and patients should be scrapped and replaced with a system in which nonprofit medical facilities and higher education institutions contribute to the infrastructure fund directly. Lamb said, quote, "The city provides services to help large nonprofits and they should pay their fair share for even that," end quote. Even if this measure gained enough support for members of City Council, it would face, quote, "major legal hurdles," Lamb said. A similar measure was introduced in 2009 under former Mayor Luke Ravenstall's administration, and it failed amid legal concerns. Allegheny County and 911 dispatchers announced a tentative agreement on Wednesday, March 9th, in order to avoid a strike. Negotiations between the SEIU, representing the dispatchers, and the county seemed to be at a standstill, and dispatchers voted to authorize a one-day strike on March 12th. The union was protesting long shifts, forced overtime, low staffing levels, and poor pay. It is currently short 44 dispatchers and are mandated to work 12 to 16-hour shifts or told to come in on their days off. Al Smith, a businessman agent for SEIU Local 668, said, quote, "We have a committee set up that will be discussing scheduling and trying to figure out how that works better for both sides," end quote. Later, Allegheny County management agreed to return to 8-hour shifts, but not until July 1st. Pay will be increased 4% for the first 3 years and 3% for the 3 years after that. Allegheny County Executive Rich Fitzgerald responded to this news saying, quote, "Thank you to both the labor and the management that puts in the long days and hours to reach this tentative agreement. We are glad that we were able to find a middle ground and that our employees and residents benefit and the strike is averted," end quote. The union members will be updated on the terms on a virtual meeting and will have to ratify the agreement. That is expected to take place within a couple of weeks. Port Authority has been facing some delays due to worker shortages. The mass call-out last weekend affected riders of all lines and all times. Reporter Nick Konopka has more information.
Pittsburgh's Port Authority is facing delays as the service's vaccine mandate for workers begins to take effect. The delay begins early as Monday the 14th, with unvaccinated workers calling off in protest. In January, the Port Authority announced that all of its staff and drivers must get at least their first shot of the COVID-19 vaccine by March 15th, without room for exemptions. This has led many workers to fight back against the Port Authority, with a mass call-off occurring on Saturday, March 12th. Amalgamated Transit Union Local 85, which represents PAT bus drivers, attempted to block the mandate by filing an emergency injunction with the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. However, the motion was struck down. This means that those who were not vaccinated by the 15th were not allowed to show up to work the next day. In a Facebook post, Union President Ross Nicotero called out Port Authority CEO Kathleen Kellyman for the, quote, "ignorance and unaccountability that has come from the mandate." Only 20% of Port Authority workers have yet to get vaccinated, which accounts for 500 workers and over 200 drivers. With the imminent delays, the Port Authority has warned drivers to find alternate modes of transportation. To stay in the know on which routes are out of service, riders can find updates at twitter.com/pghtransitalert.
The weather has finally begun to break into spring temperatures that we all know and love. Thankfully, we have Craig Frukowski in the studio to tell you all the hot details about the upcoming Pittsburgh weather this week.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's start with tomorrow's weather forecast. The high for tomorrow is going to be 68 degrees. There will mostly be cloudy skies during the day, but the sun will show itself periodically. There is a 25% chance of rain with 89% cloud cover, but that won't be until later in the day. In the evening, it won't be too cold. The temperature will only drop to about 50 degrees, but the clouds will stay through the night. Now let's move to look at the rest of the week. The highest temperature this week is going to be 72 degrees on Friday, March 18th. The low for Friday will only be 57 degrees, so the whole day will be pretty warm. Saturday, the temperature will be around 66 degrees and there's an 80% chance of rain all day. The rain will continue into Sunday and will cool the day off to about 50 degrees. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday will range from the high 50s to the mid 60s in temperature. All early next week will continue to be mostly cloudy with just a little sunshine here and there. That's all I have for you this week. Back to you, Aaron.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television. You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or our website, uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Erin Ute, and from everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.